The secret teachings of all ages. Welcome. Like so many involved in the occults, I'm a little dismissive, and you've probably heard me, of the New Age. And it's really because I feel that it's become grossly over-commercialised. Now, whilst Manley P. Hall was very much a part of the New Age, he also shared my concern of its gross over-commercialisation, despite him making an awful lot of money from this message. So maybe now is the time to reappraise the contribution of Manley P. Hall and his major and most popular tome, The Secret Teaching of All Ages. Manley P. Hall, or he's known as he was born Manley Palmer Hall, born in Peterborough, Ontario in 1901. Although given that it's Canada, I ought to call it Peterborough. His mother was a member of a Rosicrucian group. I mean, there were many Rosicrucian groups at the time, so to see it as definitively linked to the Rosicrucian of today is possibly wrong. But yeah, she was a member of a Rosicrucian group. His father apparently had been abusive. I don't think he ever met him. I think he left before he was born and split up with his mother. So he went to live in the US Midwest with his grandmother, where she actually moved him from sort of town to town, and he spent his time going through museums. He was frequently ill, so quite apart from moving around a lot, it would be very difficult to school him. So he was what's known these days as homeschooled, on a very, very broad range of books, and of course the museums that his grandmother took him to. He became something of an oddity as an adult, as though he was a Victorian within the sort of Great Depression and then the war years and then the 50s, you know. He was a tall, striking man, although in the later life he did become obese. Now, his mother had moved to Southern California, so when grandmother died, he joined his mother in Southern California, and he quickly became a preacher for the Church of the People, a sort of free evangelical church. By the age of 20, he found he could make a living through public speaking, initially in Southern California, but latterly all over the world. He gave nearly 7,000 different lectures and talks, and appeared on numerous radio and television shows throughout the United States. And all of his lectures, and most of them last around 2 hours, were given without any notes. Not many years after, starting the public speaking, he was later writing, and this provided him with a substantial income, particularly The Secret Teachings of All Ages, which he wrote at the age of 27. Now, I mean, he was very driven and very prolific, but he also met a wealthy heiress in Southern California, who reputedly became his patron. He did suffer from 2 failed marriages. The first, I say failed, but she actually committed suicide, although it seems that it was an unhappy marriage. In later life, he joined the Scottish Rite Masons and quickly rose to the top, to the 33rd degree. And also in later life, he was taken in by confidence tricksters, and he allowed them to take control of the Philosophical Research Society, which he'd established, largely in order to house his extensive occult library, inspired by the Library of Alexandria. But also it published his works, and, it's still going today, promoting him. Eventually, he was probably murdered by these confidence tricksters in 1990, but, you know, that's somewhat disputed. The occult. In Sullivan, California, when he moved there were many occult movements, especially theosophy. I mean, I suppose you could say these days there are many New Age movements originating in Southern California. But in those days it was more explicitly linked to the occult and morphed into the New Age. And of course, Manley P. Hall is very much a part of that morphing. He read many of Madame Blavatsky's books and was a real devotee to Blavatsky. Indeed, The Secret Teachings of All Ages is really an attempt to venerate Blavatsky, although it focuses on knowledge of the mystery schools and how these mystery schools shed light on the occult, rather than the sort of Hindu Buddhist traditions that Blavatsky herself tapped into. Now, Blavatsky, whilst a prolific writer, was far less readable than Manley P. Hall. So I think you could sort of say that in moving to the US, Blavatsky began the commercialisation of the occult, morphing it towards the New Age. And despite, like Manley P. Hall, being very critical of this commercialisation, both of them were important stages in this process of it becoming the sort of commercial New Age products that we know today. And now his devotion to Blavatsky led Manley to take a great interest in ancient Egypt and the mystery schools, which, as I say, that's really what he taps into in The Secret Teaching of All Ages. And long before he became a Freemason, he wrote The Lost Keys of Freemasonry, which was heavily influenced by Albert Pike. And so I would argue it needs to be taken with a pinch of salt. But, you know, a lot of people don't see it this way, including Manley himself, who venerated Albert Pike. And nevertheless, his writings on Freemasonry and Hermes Trismegistus are widely acknowledged by Freemason members. Probably thanks to the internet and especially YouTube, Manley P. Hall is even better known today than in his time. Although at his time, you know, I'd probably describe him as the Alistair Cook of occult. I mean, he did have a very good reputation. A lot of people would come and listen to him speak. In fact, his Secret Destiny of America, in which he talks about theosophical ascending masters, greatly influenced the presidency of Ronald Reagan. And I believe, especially his policy towards the Soviet Union. Rather surprisingly, it turns out that Ronald and Nancy were a part of the New Age, if not occultists. And it seems likely that they knew Manley P. Hall. The Secret Teaching of All Ages is really a compendium of the Western magical tradition, written in an easily readable language, although you have to say that the book itself is somewhat daunting in its size. Perhaps you could say that it's really more what the Kabbalion purports to be than what the Kabbalion itself actually is. And now he sourced the material for it from New York Public Library. But my criticism of him is that he was sort of uncritical of the sources and took them at face value. Nevertheless, he challenged many of the assumptions of the origins of society's spiritual roots, based on his view that there's an esoteric core running through religions and through society itself, a belief that is now very central to many in the New Age. The Secret Teaching of All Ages, the contents. I've really got to tell you, or there's so many chapters, I'm not even going to read them all out, but I really need to just run through some of the chapters to give you a flavour of what's in it, but it's a very quick run through. So the ancient mysteries and secret societies which influenced modern Masonic symbolism. So he talks of the Druids, Gnostics, Bacchus, etc. Atlantis and the gods of antiquity. The life and writings of Thoth, Hermes Trismegistus. The initiation of the pyramid, about the Great Pyramid and the Sphinx. Isings, the Virgin of the World, the murder of Orisis, and the Hermetic Isis. The Sun, a universal deity, the solar trinity, Christianity and the Sun. The zodiac and its signs. The Bembine Table of Isis, Plato's initiation into the Great Pyramid, the history of the Bembine Table, Wonder of Antiquity, the ever-burning lamps, the Oracle of Delphi, and indeed many other oracles are discussed. The life and philosophy of Pythagoras, particularly on his mathematics, he's very good on this. The human body in symbolism, the Homeric legend, which is the building of Solomon's temples, fishes, insects, animals, reptiles and birds, flowers, plants, fruits and trees, stones, metals and gems. Ceremonial magic and sorcery, the black magic of Egypt, following through to Dr. Johannes Faustus, the Mephistopheles of the grimoires. The elements and their inhabitants. Hermetic pharmacology, chemistry and therapeutics. The Kabbalah, the secret doctrine of Israel. The tree of the Sephiroth, the 32 paths of wisdom, the greater and the lesser face, and Kirshner's Sephirotic tree. Analysis of tarot cards. The tabernacle in the wilderness, which is about the art of the covenant. The fraternity of the Rose Cross, which of course is about Rosicrucianism. Alchemy. Freemasonic symbolism. Mystical Christianity. Islam, which I have to admit is somewhat naive and certainly ill-informed. And American Indian symbolism. And as I say, that's not all the chapters, but you can see it's like an encyclopedia. You know, it's got everything in it. It contains everything. Some of it's treated very well, and some of it's less good. But you know, it is encyclopedic. The Secret Teaching of All Ages and Appraisal. Well, do you know, it sounds impressive. I mean, it is impressive, you know, as I suppose as a reference book. It's incredible, it really is. But the focus is very much on ceremonial magic and secret societies. It completely ignores the sort of hedge magic or the magic of the common folk, because of course it relies on written sources, whereas the hedge magic, the magic of the cunning people, was really a magic that was an oral magic. So this is very much ignored. As a researcher myself, it feels like the sort of thing that you'd come up with if you locked yourself in a library, which is exactly what he did, but with little real experience of knowledge of what you're actually researching. So very much focusing on the things that you can identify, and you know, you as a researcher you go down this and you keep looking at this issue and looking at what's written on it, but without really appreciating how it all fits together. Of course, though, you know, you have to say at this time there'd be very limited availability of occult books, and certainly no internet, you know, so he did the best with what he could. I suppose many people will think I'm cruel in characterising it this, but I describe it almost as the Reader's Digest book of Western magic. You know, that, sorry, I had to use that. But, you know, let's be kind to him. You only need to look at the popularity of shows like Ancient Aliens to cure ourselves of any feeling of moral superiority or progress, which is implied in my criticism. So, you know, I don't want to be too hard on him. It is a tremendously thorough book. And as I say, it is what the Kabbalion really should have been. So if you're interested in the New Age, I really do recommend it. And as I say, despite its daunting size, it is a very... Well, I really hope you've enjoyed this vlog and that, yeah, not only got something out of it, but provoked thoughts. I'm not here to push my beliefs, my thoughts on you, only to open up your own thinking, get you thinking about the world and life. When I started The Real Magic of Java, I believed that I'd only release them every month or maybe every 2 months. But now I find myself adding to this subsection once or twice a week. But please subscribe and hit the bell to get notifications for when I add new parts to this subsection. In part, the reason why I'm doing it more often is that the concept has moved from filming rituals and events that took place in Java to me also describing my beliefs and philosophy. And that does come in response to people expressing an interest in it. But of course, you know, me actually seeing rituals and events really doesn't happen so often. What I would say to you is that there's no attempt at subterfuge on my behalf. And when I do experience rituals, I will include them for you to see. And as I say, there's no way I'm trying to mislead you. And if I believe there is subterfuge, if I uncover it, I will point it out to you. I'm trying to be as honest as I can be. Now, please make comments, please ask questions, and I'll try to be as honest and open with you as I can be. Of course, there will be some of you who disagree with me, particularly when I talk in terms of my own beliefs, my own feelings. And, you know, you're welcome to alternative feelings and we can agree to disagree. Sometimes I find that people on YouTube can be unnecessarily attacking and aggressive, and at times I don't restrain myself enough, and I apologise, but it's not my intention to put anybody down, you know. I know what I talk about can be emotive, and it can be challenging to your beliefs. But, you know, I'd love to enter an open discussion, a heartfelt discussion. But unfortunately, I often come across things that are, especially when people quote the scriptures to me, I've just no idea where it takes us, you know. Because I'm speaking from the heart, you know. I mean, you know, sorry, if you want to quote the scriptures at me, do so, but it doesn't have much impact on me, you know. I personally have no desire to impose my feelings on you, and I suppose when people try to do it to me, it washes off, you know. All I'm trying to do is I'm trying to share my feelings with you, and I'd love an open discussion on feelings. I really would love it, you know. And sorry if I don't always react as best I should. I try and cure this in myself, but I think this is part of the sort of narcissism of social media that I talk about so much in this subsection. So look, if you've enjoyed it, I really urge you to listen to other sections on this channel. particularly the 4 audio books that I've uploaded onto this channel. Yes, they are in a novel format. They are novels, but they go into much greater depth of my thoughts and feelings. Now, what I would say to you is these are sequential. So my thoughts and feelings develop as we go through each chapter and each book. So it does begin with 1.1, the Chinese cemetery. But, you know, hey, it's up to you. Feel free to dip in as you wish, as you want. And, you know, really heartfelt thanks for listening to this. And I really want to say a great big thank you, and God bless you.